Hey guys, in this video today we're going to be taking a look at the Kafka trigger on Flogo. So to start off, we're going to create a new app. So new service, Kafka sample, and create a flow. Kafka sample, create, and your new flow will be created. And this is how your window will be for developing. So what we need to do to start is add a input. So actually, technically you don't have to do this, but just to make sure to show you everything that's offered from the trigger, we're going to add a parameter just called message, and this is going to be a string, and it's going to be under the input params. We're going to leave the output one blank. So hit save, and then on this little box here on your your far left-hand side, you're going to add trigger, and in this case you have a few choices, but in this case we're just going to do Kafka one, so we're just going to add the Kafka. Click on it again, and the configuration window will pop up. So in right here, you'll be able to add a few things. You're going to need to make sure that you configure it correctly so you can actually connect to your Kafka broker. So to start off, and actually it might be easier if you also have the documentation window open. So typicosoftware.github.io/Flogo, just because there's a few constraints with the trigger. So the first thing is that any type of messages that are being sent have to be plain text, and so it states it here, and that the trigger also supports the certain type of authentication, in this case TLS or SASL, and there's a few things depending on what type of connection you're using. So for TLS, you need to make sure that you actually define what your directory is for your CA roots, and then that the broker URL is actually an SSL port. But if you're using SASL, then you just have to provide the username and password. So depending on how your security is for your actual Kafka broker, that will depend on what you have to actually fill in for your settings. And there's more information, like if you want to see the schemas, the output, and such like that, and some examples, you can just look there. So let's say you're just configuring this with just the username and password, so you just put the broker URL of the actual Kafka broker. You can hard code it or set some sort of variable. You put the username, you can put the password. You do not need a trust store because you're using the username and password for authentication. You will put the topic for the actual whatever you're connecting to, so the topic that you're subscribing to. And there's a few other things here that if you want to add as well, you can add. But let's say if you actually wanted to use TLS and you needed to define the trust store, what you do is make sure that this broker URL is using SSL, and that this trust store basically points to the directory that has your certs in it. So if you just read this here, CSA is assigned the service certificate has been copied to the trust store directory to allow clients to connect. So whatever you define as your trust store, you need to make sure that your certificates are there, and that when you actually deploy your application, it'll look for your certificates in whatever location that you've set there. And if you do that, then you don't have user and password authentication, you can leave them optional, blank. So notice how it's just optional. So it's just depending on exactly what you actually want to do, how you want your authentication to be done, just depending on what your use case is. So after that, you define these different things within the settings, you can go to map flow inputs, and essentially what this is that you can map the message into another input parameter. Why this is useful? So whatever's coming out of, or whatever you subscribe to in Kafka, so whatever the message is that is coming out of the broker, that will be captured into this parameter called message, and that will be available to any other type of activity within your actual Flogo project. So if I build this out, and let me just put, so I can actually save it. I save the message, now if I exit out and I add a log, just test this out. And then I go into configure, message, flow, message. So essentially by configuring this, what's going to happen is that whatever message that is coming out of the Kafka broker, and it's being captured by my receive Kafka trigger, that'll be passed along to this log message, and I'm just gonna log it. I'm just gonna output it, and then you can use that anywhere else within the project on any other activities that you actually build on with here. So yeah, I was just looking at the documentation and just making sure that you are knowledgeable, or you know that there's some restrictions. It's exactly how to connect to your Kafka broker, and then and then depending on whatever you decide to use for your authentication, then that's how you fill in your actual trigger settings and different handler settings and such. Yeah, thank you.